Hello and welcome again to my channel. This is Success Mango. This is the channel where we help you succeed in business and career and in relationships. My name is Chinedu Abwim, and today I'm going to be talking about how to have an open and honest communication. There are a lot of times where couples, particularly in a marriage relationship, for instance, are finding it difficult communicating, especially honestly and in an open manner, because it's important we get to the place where we can talk about things as they are without feeling insecure or without feeling we will be rubbed off wrongly or will be shut down, or without feeling that it's too delicate an area to go into, and therefore instead of communicating with your partner you hold it within yourself and you're burning and you're sad and you're upset and you're not fulfilled. This is one question that a lot of couples have asked me, and I have found out that in a lot of relationships, this thing about communication is a major issue. One partner feels that there are certain things they don't want to talk about because if they talk about it, it will create sparks in the home. And because of that, even though they want to really air their feelings and say how they feel things should be, they are careful because they're walking on eggshells. And sometimes some other people have complained that it seems as if there are certain things that the other partner is willing to talk about freely, but there are other things that they just keep to themselves, and it doesn't allow for a fully fulfilling and holistic marriage relationship. So I'm going to be dealing with it today in this particular video. Now, I have found out that there are a couple of factors that affect the ability of couples, to have open and honest communication. I tell you, open and honest communication is one thing, and I'm just saying this to help some of you listening. It's one thing that will really help your marriage to be strong, because it builds that thing that is called trust. Trust is a currency. When you have trust for each other, it can do major good for your marriage and for a relationship. So, what are the factors that affect people and prevent them from having an open and honest communication between themselves, especially couples in a marriage relationship? Number one, upbringing. I found out that many times when we are adults, a lot of how we grew up, particularly what we saw in the marriage our parents had, it affects our mind. It makes us to judge things in a particular way. It also makes us to relate with our partners subconsciously in a way that is a mirror of how we were brought up. So that upbringing, it really does affect. It's one factor. A second factor I've also noticed is temperament and personality types. The different temperaments, they kind of have a way they want to communicate and they want to receive communication. I don't know why. There's a way they want to be communicated to. There's also a way they generally tend to communicate to others. So when you understand people's temperaments better, it always and often helps to foster better communication, more open and honest communication. So temperament and personality types is one other factor, the second factor. Now, the third one, which kind of relates, is the person's mindset or worldview. So you see, the upbringing and the temperament kind of play into the third part. People's mindsets, people's worldview, people's perspective to life. Some people feel that everyone is out there to get them. Some people feel that they need to take advantage of things and, keep moving. And people have different perspectives to life. So there are other people that feel they need to fight their way in order to get things. Either way, the person's mindset or worldview or attitude or perspective to life affects the ability to have open and honest communication. A fourth thing that affects is the person's ethics, values, morals. So there probably is a code of conduct or a set of ethics and values that person lives by. For example, there are some people, they don't lie. It's a rule they have. They don't tell lies. They don't steal. So when you have someone like that, you're going to be more comfortable communicating with that person, knowing that this person is not going to lie to me. So that's another factor that affects the ability to have an open and honest communication. A fifth factor is the perception a partner has of the other. For example, the perception a husband has about his wife, or the perception the wife has about the husband. And many times this perception may have built up over the years. Sometimes people go into marriage with an open heart, expecting that things will work out in a particular way. Then certain problems and certain crises and certain difficulties now begin to play out, and at the end of the day, all that expectation is dashed, and a particular perception about your partner is formed in your head. Therefore, if you want to communicate with this person is this kind of person or that kind of person. So I have to be careful communicating with him or her, because this is what I feel they are. This is what I've been shown over the years about their behavior and their attitude. So your perception, it always affects the ability to have an open and honest communication. A sixth thing that affects your ability to have an open and honest communication is willingness to talk about the issue. Sometimes the particular issue at hand, one party or the other may not be willing to talk about it at that time. So if they're not willing to talk about it at that time, there's really nothing you can do. That's another factor that affects. A seventh factor that also affects is the commitment the partners in the relationship have towards the relationship working. This is important because if you're not committed to that relationship, there are sacrifices you're not going to make. Because many times when you now have that open and honest communication, you will find out that there are certain things about you that you need to adjust. There are certain behaviors that may have been comfortable by you in the past that you now need to adjust in order to accommodate the preferences that your partner has. So it will require sacrifice. That means if you're not committed to that relationship, you're not going to want to make the adjustments. You're not going to want to make the sacrifice. So commitment to the relationship is another factor that affects the ability of people to have an open and honest communication. Another factor that does affect this ability to communicate openly and honestly with each other in a relationship is mental toughness. Why am I saying mental toughness? In fact, let me add mental and emotional toughness to it. This is for one reason. You may be able to communicate freely with your partner on anything, but there are some things that when they happen, you know that your partner's emotional makeup or mental makeup may not be able to carry the information. For instance, if a loved one dies, maybe your partner's loved one, parent or sibling dies, and you heard it first, you're going to have to gauge if your partner is emotionally strong enough or mentally tough enough to carry that information at that time. If they are not, there is a way you have to tailor the information in order for them to be able to receive it without breaking down or without fracturing. So you have to be able to know the person's mental toughness or emotional toughness or makeup that will make it such that they can receive information or communication in an open and an honest way. I'm not saying if the person is not mentally tough or emotionally tough, you don't communicate openly or honestly. It's just that if that emotional or mental toughness is not there, there is a way you have to tailor your communication. Maybe at a particular point in time, you don't say everything just like that, or you don't say it just the way it happened. You kind of break it down in such a way that you can manage the situation when there is a fallout based on that person's makeup emotionally, not being able to handle it, or not being able to handle it, or makeup mentally, not being able to handle it. So mental and emotional toughness is a key. And then finally, one thing that also affects the ability to have open and honest communication is past hurts, past disappointments. Maybe you promised something in the past, you disappointed her or you disappointed him. Or maybe you made a commitment to change in a particular area and you failed and you disappointed him or her. When that happens and you now want to have another round of open and honest communication in quote, there's going to be suspicion somewhere. This man or this woman that failed in the past, how sure am I that today or this particular situation is going to be better? So that also does affect. So I've mentioned about 10 factors that affect the ability to have open and honest communication. So that being said, I want to share now a few tips on how you can actually have open and honest communication with your partner. Number one, choose a setting, an environment that is conducive, an environment that doesn't have distractions, a setting where everybody is calm and there's no tension. It's important. I've seen situations or there are scenarios where people, when they want to have some kind of conversation, they go back to the place where they first met, just to bring good memories and make everyone happy and relaxed before they now talk about maybe how to now move the marriage forward and stuff like that. Some people can decide to go on a dinner date in a quiet environment where they won't have distraction from the kids and all that, so that they can have an open and honest conversation. So the setting and the environment is important. Choose the right setting. You don't have to go out for it. You can do it in your home. You can do it in your room. Just make sure that the distractions are minimized and the atmosphere is settled and calm and conducive and relaxed enough to have that kind of conversation. Number two, watch your use of words and the tone of voice. You don't need to shout. You don't need to argue. Sometimes, I don't know why, a lot of couples, I don't know. I've seen it a lot. When they come to their boss, they'll be like, yes sir, yes ma, all right, I'll get it done, no problem. When they get back home, they talk to their husbands or their wives as if they're talking to dogs. Watch your words. Words matter. Words are like, they are alive, because when somebody speaks a word to you, that word enters into you and it can cause harm. It can make you feel bad, and when you feel bad, that bad feeling begins to affect you even physically. So watch your words and your tone of voice. I know a particular couple, the man said he always needs to shout to show his wife that he is serious. I say you don't need to shout to show your wife that you're serious. You're just shouting now to show to yourself that you're the man. The truth of the matter is that she will hear you whether you shouted or you didn't shout. It just depends on how you approach the communication. I'm a strong believer that the way you communicate information, the tone of voice you use can bring either maximum damage or maximum benefit, and all that depends on you. Choose to speak calmly, beautifully, warmly, nicely. Choose the right words. Never use words that are derogatory. Don't insult your wife or your husband. Even if they say something wrong, deal with the issue. Say, no, honey, I think this issue or this approach can be, handled differently. Don't say, honey, are you stupid? How can you do this? How can you say this? Avoid those kind of words. Then the third thing I'm going to say as a tip is start with affirmation before criticism. And please, when you want to criticize, let it be positive. Always start with affirmation. Talk about the things that you like that your partner is doing. Say, honey, I really appreciate the effort you're making in order to take care of the kids. I appreciate the effort you're making to bring money into the home. I really appreciate the fact that you stand by me and support me in my career. Start with affirmation before you say, but I would like if you could consider to add more attention or put more interest in this particular area of our lives. Once you use that approach, affirmation first, praise first, before you say what it is you want to say, that thing you want to say will be easily acceptable. So start with affirmation, start with praise before you go anywhere near anything that looks like criticism. Then, another thing I'll also say as a general tip is watch for body cues, watch for body language. The reason I'm saying this is that there are people who don't talk much. So even while you're trying to, have an open and honest communication, they're not quite talkers. So if you are the talking type and maybe he or she is not the talking type, that doesn't mean you should just keep rambling without observing the person you're speaking to. Because it's supposed to be what? Communication, two-way. You speak, the other person speaks, both of you understand yourselves, and both of you harmonize and work together. Then another tip I'm going to give is active listening is important. It's not when your partner is talking, you're fiddling with your phone, you're sending a text message, or you're making a call. No, don't do that. Be there, listen. And then also another thing some people do that they call active listening, which is not exactly active listening, is that when you're talking, they're just saying in their heart, finish talking so that I will now talk my own. Finish talking, just finish so that I will now tell you my own. No. Active listening involves listening to what the person is saying, trying to put yourself in the person's shoes so that you can understand the person's frame of reference and what the person is trying to communicate. You need to actively be engaged in that communication. Don't do it like you're waiting to now say your own, and don't be distracted. It's important. Be in tune. You guys are trying to have what? An open and honest communication. Then finally, express yourself clearly and calmly. Don't be ambiguous. Say how you feel. Say what you want. But remember what I said. Start with affirmation, start with praise before you talk about anything that relates to what? Criticism. So these are, tips, general tips. There could be more, but these are general tips that will help you to have an open and honest communication. I know there's still a lot more things that can be said around this, and maybe in subsequent videos I'll also talk about that as the case arises. And also, if you have comments or any inputs to make, they are definitely welcome. I'll sure appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching up until now. Please subscribe to this channel. There are a lot of other videos that are going to be coming out that will help you to succeed in business, in career, and in the relationship. So see you next time, and thank you so much.